Westplex 107.1, it is BS in the Morning on a Wednesday morning. Good morning to you, Shelley. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Hey, Brad, guess what day it is?
It's hump day.
It's hump day.
Yeah, and it's a crazy weather day. Snow showers throughout the area, currently 30 degrees. Lots of traffic issues this morning. Supposed to snow all the way up until about 11 o'clock this morning. No, not much accumulation, like maybe an inch or less. Already, if you look out and about, if you're driving around, and if you're just getting out of the house, you'll probably notice that on most of the streets and sidewalks, it was actually a little bit too warm for snow to stick, but it is still right now below freezing, so as far as the air temperature is concerned. So I know there are lots of accidents throughout the area, so please be careful. You know, we're not the biggest radio station. We can't afford to lose any of our listeners.
That's true.
Yeah. Other than that, weather, taking a look at the, me, Mr. Weather Geek, looking at the weather radar here. The activity right now is pretty much all over the St. Louis area, but believe it or not, we're on the tail end of it. The snow that's moved through, most of it's been to the north of us, but like I said, it should be out of here by about 9, 10 o'clock. So after that, should be a decent day, but still going to be cold, and there's probably some chances of refreezing as the ground temperature does get down too close to where the air temperature is. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Well, we're waiting, and
we're waiting.
Oh yeah, it's a cold gray bucket of socks.
Whatever you say.
I know how you love that.
Yeah.
That's one of my technological terms.
I know there are people that cringe every time you say that. Hello?
We just consider that a perk.
Oh, why? That you cringe?
Can you not hear me?
You're cutting in and out a couple times.
No, you cringe.
No, I don't. Do I cringe?
Yes.
No, but it's just I know there are people going, I don't like the way she says that.
They probably do that when you do Henry DiCarlo, too.
What?
Please don't put him on. It's too early in the morning.
Excuse me, I got a cough. Too early for Henry?
Yes.
You know, he was telling us about I haven't done Henry in a while. I haven't done him this entire week.
It's Wednesday, Brad.
Well, it's 2/3 of the way through the week. So no. We're 3/5
the entire week. It's Wednesday.
3/5 of the way through the week. So stuff like that. A lot of stuff in the news. Did you watch the debate at all last night?
What do you think? Actually, no. I was actually at Sugar Fire in Wentzville celebrating Fat Tuesday.
What was going on there?
They were just having a Fat Tuesday party.
Now, why did you mention them? Because they won't do any advertising with us. You should have just said, I was at a restaurant last night in Wentzville.
Because they're going to be doing advertising with us.
We have people that will say to us, hey, I'm not going to do advertising with you, but can you promote my business? and sometimes maybe I come off as a bit of a smart ass. I would say
no, not you.
I would say well, I'll tell you what, we'll eat your food, but we're never going to say your name on the air. And then what? I go, well, you know what? Why should we do that? You know, I mean, why should we promote your business? It would be like me walking into a car dealer and going hey, can I drive one of your new cars for a week and I'll say good things about you? The chances are they're going to say, nah, we'll pass on that. Unless you're
Didn't somebody give you that deal?
No. Unless you're somebody like I don't know, a celebrity, like maybe if you were I don't know, Jordan, the goalie for the Blues or stuff like that. You know, they get deals like that.
No, I thought that you did that. I thought you did a promotion where you drove a new Ford truck every week.
That was through Ford Motor Company. That was actually through corporate. That was actually, and you know what? They used to do those kind of things because this guy that used to live by me, who runs an auto repair shop, was like the weekend automotive host in Camo X. And it was always sort of cool because, I'd always see these neat cars in front of his house. And they always had, most of the cars had, and the ones I drove had what they call manufacturer's plates. I don't know if you know this or not, but certain states that have like a lot of auto manufacturing in it, like Michigan, they have special plates that they're not like dealer plates. They're manufacturer plates. In other words, that they can legally drive cars on the road and they're licensed as, the manufacturer. And they don't have to title them or anything like. Well, they do title them, but they don't actually. excuse me, I got the cough still. They don't have to title them. And I did that with Ford for a while, and it was cool. And I believe that most of the companies stopped doing that because it got to the point where they just didn't think they were getting enough bang for their buck. I did that for, I guess 2 or 3 months, and like it was sometimes it was for a week, and then for 2 weeks they just give me a brand new Ford. And started out with they spoiled me. Started out with a brand new F-150 crew cab 4x4. Man, that truck was nice. Leather interior and the whole bit. And I drove all sorts of
Made you want to scratch and spit, didn't it?
I have to tell you, and you're not going to like this, the one I liked the least was a Lincoln. Because you know why?
Hey, don't be busting on my Lincolns, man.
I'll tell you why. It had all the goofy electronic stuff in it, which, like, for example, had that radio. They had what they call the Wonder Bar or something like that.
I don't like that either in their radio, but I don't have that.
It had the, for people who don't know what it is, it didn't have a volume knob. It had this like aluminum bar that went across the front of the radio.
And you sat there and you pressed it, and that brought up the volume up or down.
Yes, you could hit a certain...
It took me a while to figure that one out in one of those cars, but mine has buttons, and it's got a THX certified surround sound.
Well, so many, I keep hearing this from people, and it's really interesting, and not necessarily old people, but it's gotten to the point where I think the car manufacturers have gotten a little bit too sophisticated, because sometimes you just want to grab a knob and you want to turn it to the right to give you heat. You know what I mean? Or you want to,
I have that.
Well, or you want to grab a knob and you want to turn up the fan, so in other words, if you're driving along. And I think part of it is, I read an interesting article that talked about this, that a lot of the new electronics is, hold on a minute. Okay, a lot of the new electronic systems create diversions for the driver. It's the distracted driver thing, because think about it. When you're driving...
But once you get used to it, it's like second nature.
No.
So it's not an issue.
No, not necessarily. And that's what the point they were saying is, because the tactile feel is that when you're driving along, you're looking out the windshield, and you reach down and you feel that knob, which is the blower control for your air heating or air conditioning, whichever time of the season it is. It's easy to just take that knob and feel it and turn it. Whereas if you have to pull up something on a screen, or if there's like an up button that makes the blower go faster, if there's a down button, it's not as easy to find when you're driving along. You know what I'm saying?
It is when you know your car.
Yeah, but still, it's not to the point where it's not as easy as it is to just have X amount of knobs in the car. And I think that's one of the things where sometimes technology gets to the point where it gets in the way of functionality, if that makes any sense.
Well, I always thought the push button start. I mean, I drove up to Columbia to get my car. It was a used car. It had 18,000 miles. Now it's got like 170. But I drove up there, and because my other Lincoln I loved that little Lincoln. It was on a Jaguar chassis. But anyway, I digress. But she was a good car to me. And so then I got this car, and I was going to drive away, but it didn't have a key. It only had this fob. And I'm like, I don't know how to turn the car on. And so the salesman came over, and he goes, you push this button right here that says push to start. And I'm like, wow, did not even see that coming. So that was my first trial with newfangledness. Yeah, well, I've driven those cars as well too, and quite honestly, maybe if I got used to like you, if I drove it every day, I'd like it. But I don't like those push button starts. You get used to it, because then like I said, you don't have to sit there and take your keys out all the time if you've got a keyless entry, and it's just one more thing. Yeah. I guess I am maybe, and it's not like because the fact that I'm old guy, because I've always been, one of these people that I love technology, but I think when technology gets to the point where it just sort of gets out of control, to the point where you're doing things just because it's technology, that's what I don't necessarily like. And, I think, and what's interesting about this is it's sort of the philosophy of Apple. It always has been the philosophy of Apple with all their computers, especially the iPhones and the Macs and things like that, that it's intuitive
And if you've and you know, think about it. Once you've seen kids who are like 2 years old, and you hand them like an iPad or something like that, and they can work it like a master, you go, okay, I get what they're doing. You know, the Apple people are making it to the point. Now, the criticism of Apple is they've done that to the point where they sort of dumb things down to the point where, you know, there could be more options to the phones and things like that they don't put in because it makes it too complicated to operate. But that's one of their philosophies, to make it super simple. And that's why, like, even on, like you talk about, you know,
that one button is not super simple.
No, the new phones, the 10s and the 11s have no button. There's no button.
I know
on it.
that is not super simple to me.
Well, but just like what you said about the thing with your keyless entry, once you get the hang of it, you're going like, why? And Shelley, I have to tell you, don't take this the wrong way. I was a dyed-in-the-wool BlackBerry guy. Loved my BlackBerry. Got to a point where I couldn't get it to support anymore. I had it through Sprint. I had the service plan through Sprint, and when it broke the last time, they go, "I'm sorry, we don't service those anymore." I go, well, why am I paying for the service plan? So I switched over to an Android phone, which I liked, and then a friend of mine let me use his Apple for a couple days, his iPhone, and I went like, oh my God. And it's just like once you've figured out how to use the iPhone, I mean, it's just like so intuitive, and to the point where
it's not intuitive. It's
no. See, you're a dyed-in-the-wool Android person. You know, once again, that's great. I have no problem with that. I'm not going to be like Mr. Snob or anything like that, because quite honestly, I've never liked the Apple snobbery. That if I have a iPhone 10, you know, like, oh my God, let me get down and kiss your feet because you've got an iPhone 10. You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, you know. One of those things. Hey, weather's sort of bad out there. Please be careful driving around. The snow, like I mentioned, I'm looking at the radar right now. Got it in the motion mode. We are on the tail end of the snow. There's a couple little small bands that are out toward Kansas City and Springfield, but I don't think those are going to be much of a factor for us in the St. Louis area. So if you can make it through the next 2-3 hours, should be in good shape. Some areas do have, and the way the snow has come through the area, the farther north you are, the more snow you're going to have. So if you're in St. Charles County, the northern parts of St. Charles County, the Moscow Mills up through there, or even Lincoln County, the Troy, the Winfield area, you're going to have more snow that way. And especially if you're going to Illinois, if you're going up 55, right now, if you look at the radar, the snow is right smack dab over 55 all the way up into Chicago. So if you're heading that way via the ground or the air, be prepared, because there's going to be some probably some slowdowns on the ground, or maybe even some stoppage with accidents and things like that in Illinois. But if you're flying, obviously there's going to be some delays going into O'Hare. And once again, if they were flying into St. Louis, they wouldn't have those problems, would they, Shelley?
No, they wouldn't.
So they should move that. They should move.
Or if they were on the trolley.
What?
If we had a trolley that went from St. Charles to St. Louis, they wouldn't have a problem.
A trolley? You're talking like the loop trolley, the stupid...
Yes, I was trying to make a segue into that, but didn't work.
Okay, I don't quite... When you say trolley, I'm thinking to myself, I think I'd be better with a go-kart than a trolley. You know, that's what they should have done. They should just get everybody an ATV. They should just, hey, you want to go up and down the loop? Here's an ATV, and just let you drive it up and down. Just park it.
Well, at this point in our years, we're supposed to actually already have flying cars. Yeah. I remember, this is going back when I was like barely a double digit, and I read an article. Well, I read 2 articles actually, and the one really fascinated me, and it was about what the year 2000, actually what the year 1999, what it was gonna be like, and we're still not there yet, but we're supposed to have flying cars, and we're supposed to have, just things, what is that called? When the cars drive themselves, what is that called?
Autonomous.
Yes, we're supposed to have that. And then the other article, which is totally unrelated, but I read an article, and again, this is when I was barely a double digit, and the article was talking about how rock and roll is not healthy for you because it makes your blood pressure go up.
There's all sorts of stuff like that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. It's 6:23. Westplex 107.1, Maren Morris turning off her country twang and sounding like a pop artist, and she's a very versatile entertainer. Excellent song, very popular, and I still, every time I hear it, I think to myself, that's the same lady who did 90s Ladies, 80 Mercedes in my church, and used to tour with a lot, well, still does, toured with, he's coming, what's his name, Rhett Aiken's son, Thomas Rhett. Do you know that?
I did not know.
Thomas Rhett Aiken's real name is Thomas Rhett Aikens Sr., and his son is Thomas Rhett Aikens Jr. So Thomas Rhett Aikens Sr. just called himself Rhett Aikens, and his son so in other words, he used his middle and his last name, and his son uses his first and middle name, which is sort of interesting, but they're senior and junior. And Rhett was popular back in the 90s as far as country is concerned. So man, think about that. Thinking like, okay, are we getting old where we've got artists who their sons, their sons and daughters are doing well, and we remember their moms and dads? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Brad, we are getting old.
It's one of those crazy things. Weather's still important. We'll have the complete forecast coming up with Jennifer
Wojcicki.
We are on the tail end of the snow. It's moving out of the St. Louis area. Matter of fact, if you were driving west on 70 right now, by the time you got out past probably Warrenton, you wouldn't have any more snow. But if you're going north in 55, you got snow all the way up through Chicago. There's still quite a bit of snow on 55 to the south of the St. Louis area. Matter of fact, right now the snow looks like it's pretty much almost all the way down to Cape Girardeau. But that, once again, is the tail end of the storm, and it's supposed to be out of here in the next 2 to 3 hours. So I asked you the last break we had if you watched the debate last night, and you said you didn't. I listened to the debate for about an hour, and I have to tell you, and I'm not saying this because of the fact that I'm like dissing on Mr. Biden, but man.
Oh, no, you would never do that.
No. But he just made so many mistakes last night. I mean, huge gaffes when they were talking about guns and gun legislation and, things like that. He made the quote, and at first I thought to myself, I don't think I heard him right. And I actually went this morning and looked it up, and yes, this is the statistic he gave, that between 2007, he was debating Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders apparently voted yes for some gun bill, which wasn't tough enough, according to Biden and some of the other people on stage. But anyway, Biden said that between 2007 and between 2007 and 2019, so in other words, a span of 12 years, there were 150 million Americans killed by guns.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like half the population got wiped out between 2007 and 2019. And once again, when I first heard it, I'm driving along listening to this. I'm going like, I must have misheard that. I can't be right. I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's 150,000. I don't know. But that 150 million. And like I said, I wrote a note, and this morning I woke up, and I read through, and there were several people that were essentially critiquing the debates. Some of the the journalists who were saying that Biden made many misstatements of facts, and the one that was the most blatant one was 150 million people killed in the last 12 years in the United States by gun violence. So I don't know. I mean, you sort of scratch your head. I get it. It's like it looks easy, but when you're in the position, when you're standing there on stage, it's like, you watch a basketball player do a slam dunk. Oh, I could do that. And you can't come anywhere close to doing that. Or you watch these guys, the Cardinals, hit those 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, and you go, I can do that. And you get up there and, if somebody throws a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, you don't even see it. You know what I mean? You can't, it's so quick, you can't even get the bat off your shoulder. I get it. It's tough. But by the same token, it's like this guy's been doing it for a long time. He talks about how long he's been in the public eye. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and then the whole last night they were yelling at each other, and the moderators had to step in and okay, one at a time. It was just sort of out of control. I mean, it just, I don't know. And here's what I don't get is that, remember, he had the rules of the debates, and we started out with 12, and then it went down to 5, and why did it get back up to 7? How come there's people there, instead of like it keeping going down every time they did debates? How come we add more people? They added Bloomberg. I don't quite get that. Who's changing the rules?
They had Bloomberg.
Well, no, because under the old rules, he's not applicable. And see, the crazy thing
Because he was late to the party, or what?
he's never run in a primary yet. See, he's never registered for the Iowa caucus. He never registered for the New Hampshire. In other words, it would be like me saying, "Hey, I want to run for county consul in St. Charles County, and the election is going to be on such and such a date." And then I say, "Hey, vote for me," and people go like, "Well, I tried to, but you weren't on the ballot." Well, you should have voted for me anyway. I don't quite get it. I mean, he's got money. I mean, he's spent right now. They're saying he's coming up on $500 million. He's spent on campaigning with TV ads and unfortunately not much radio. I wish we could get like a little bit of his budget, but it's mainly TV ads and digital. Lots of digital ads. Matter of fact, I was watching something yesterday. You get interrupted.
Ooh, Bloomberg?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know how you get interrupted with the digital ads? I was watching a little 5-minute clip of somebody, and there were 4 ads in a row. I mean, not in a row, but 4 ads that interrupted the video I was watching, and they were all Bloomberg. And then last night on TV, there were comments made about this. He got all sorts of. There was pushback about the fact that he's a Me Too person, and there's all these women that used to work for him that filed charges against him, and then all of a sudden they withdrew the charges and they signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. Excuse me, non-disclosure agreement, which meant they probably also got some money as well too. And they were running ads on TV last night, the network ads, and also some local ads that were 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and it was nothing but woman after woman after woman after woman after woman who had worked for him either with one of his companies or had been one of his advisors or one of his employees at New York City when he was the mayor. And I'm going like, okay, they're trying to, push the woman aspect of this to the point where like, hey, he's female friendly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the whole thing is, and then last night during the debate, they talked about like, look what's happened with the last election. We had all these, 44 new Democrats elected, and that's how they took control of the House of Representatives. And he chimes up and he says, yeah, he says, I was responsible for half of those Democrats getting elected because I gave them $200 million. And I'm going like, holy cow.
$1 billion.
I mean, wouldn't it be nice just to be able to throw that kind of money around?
It would. Actually, well, you don't know who your friends are if you're poor, but you really don't know who your true friends are. And I only know this because I had family that was extremely wealthy. You really never know who your true friends are when you have a lot of money.
Well, here's...
Unless you pay them. If you pay them, they are very... what's the word? They're very loyal.
Well, I have a fantasy about money, and I'll give you the next break. And it's not weird or anything like that. Well, maybe it is weird, but I have this fantasy about money, which I thought would always be sort of cool.
You want to roll around in it?
No. Just the opposite. And we'll talk about it next break. Weather's coming up. It's sort of nasty out there. Please be careful. Once again, we're in a situation where the ground temperature was on the high side yesterday, and especially a lot of the roads are in decent shape this morning, but the overpasses and the ramps are not in the best of shape. So please be careful out there. We don't want to lose any one of you, and we don't want to have any of you end up with a crunched car or a crunched body or anything like that. The weather's coming up, and it'll be right after this.
So, Brad, tell me your fantasy.
I'll tell you about it on the air.
Only you would tell a fantasy on the air, Brad. Am I on the air?
Westplex 107.1, and Shelley hates it every time I play that song. She'll say, stop.
I love that song.
I know you do. Weather this morning is a factor. Please be careful out there. The snow, and I guess it's sometimes mixed with a little bit of rain because we're right at that freezing mark, is still in the area, moving out through the area right now. By 10, 11 o'clock this morning, the snow should be out of here. That's not going to do you much good if you're trying to make it into work right now because it is causing some problems with a lot of delays. noise and a lot of accidents around, especially, I know this, you hear this all the time, but watch out for the overpasses and the bridges. That's where a lot of the problems have been this morning and continue to be. So please be careful out there. A complete forecast coming up in about 45 minutes from our very own meteorologist, Jennifer
Fortutsky.
And, I don't think, I think I heard one school closing today. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of school closings. Have you heard any of these school closings today?
No, not on Facebook.
Yeah, here we go. Everything she knows is on Facebook.
I know how you love that, so I just had to, bring that in.
I tell you what, as a journalist, whenever you say that, it makes me cringe. It really does.
And I think that's a perk.
A perk that it makes me cringe?
Yes.
No, because Facebook and Google have killed the journalism industry. I mean, they've...
my goodness, they have not.
They have. Honest to goodness, they have.
Google probably, but Facebook not so much.
Oh, well, you're a perfect example. You say all the time, I get my news from Facebook.
I am a perfect example. Thank you, Brad. That was the sweetest thing.
Shelley, you say all the time, I get all my news from Facebook. Once again, like most...
Do you know why I do that?
Because you don't know better?
No, thank you so much.
Because
I do that because you watch the news, everything is negative.
No,
I sit there
no.
and I mean, it's like a freaking soap opera.
Okay, but here's the problem. The problem has been through the years and years and years, people have tried to say, hey, let's do happy news, and nobody watches or nobody listens.
And I get that, but that's not me. Well, I'm an eternal optimist.
Yeah.
I don't need all this negativity about the shootings, and I don't need to hear all that because it's depressing.
So Facebook...
I have started reading the paper highlights digitally because of the radio show and because I just want to not sound so completely pathetic. But I watch Facebook because I can pick and choose what goes through my news feed.
Yeah, but once again, the problem with that is that most of the Facebook news is not reported directly by reporters. It's stuff that's rewritten. I mean, I always give this example. You remember when we switched the call letters to one of our stations to crap, KRAP, okay?
I do. I do. That made national news there, Brad.
But that was my point. My point was that a reporter from the Post-Dispatch, very nice guy by the name of Dan Caesar, actually took me to lunch, invited me to lunch for an interview about switching our radio station over to sports and doing crap, because he was the guy that always follows like the KFNS escapades and things like that. Anyway, took me to lunch, took notes, and wrote what I thought was a very fair article, and he did a really good job. I've had newspaper articles written about me in the past. As a matter of fact, probably the funniest one was when I was born in Peculiar, Missouri, but that's a whole other story. You know what I'm talking about with that one. But
yeah, I do.
Anyway,
that still makes me giggle.
The point being is that he was a paid journalist, a working journalist who had a journalism degree and knew what the heck he was doing, okay? Over the course of the next month, there were probably, 30, 40 different articles on the internet about me switching the call letters from what they used to be to crap. Hey, it's a radio station named crap.
Yes, there was.
Every last one of them was rewritten off of the Post-Dispatch article. Every last one. Some of them to the point where we're almost word for word. And nobody ever called me. Nobody ever called to verify the story, and nobody ever called me to say, hey, I'm Joe Smith from XYZ Media, and, I saw this article about you in the Post-Dispatch. Was this really true? Is this, the stuff that's in the article, is this really fact? Nobody ever called. And it was interesting. Some of them had embellished the story and had added things that weren't true. Some of them, didn't really explain why we did that. Other ones said that the call letters had been previously issued to several other radio stations in the state of the United States, which was not true.
That wasn't true.
The call letters KRAP were never issued. There were bandit stations, pirate stations that used them. Some people said it was the original call letters for the TV show KRAP.
WKRP.
But no. Some of the people said the original call letters was going to be crap radio, but the problem was that they wanted to have it in Cincinnati. But if you know the way the call letters are issued, the call letters to the east of the Mississippi are W's, and to the west of the Mississippi, for the most part, 98% are K's. And I was, me having a journalism degree, I was like, man, the internet's gotten to the point where nobody does any reporting anymore. And just like the situation for me was when I went up into Ferguson and during the Michael Brown thing, I saw stuff that just blew me away that was never, ever, ever reported anywhere. And it wasn't like I was the only guy there. I mean, there were journalists from all over the world there, and yet there were selective things that said, I actually saw one TV reporter who shall remain nameless, a local TV reporter, a woman, go on camera and give she was doing a live shot, doing a narrative of what was going on that particular night. And as soon as she got off camera, she threw down her microphone and she said, I hate lying to the people. That's what she said.
So she was still on the air?
No. This is after she was off the air.
Oh, okay.
Because she was...
And you just happened to be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and once again, there's stuff that went on there that and you and I have talked about this, the fact that still every once in a while, somebody that from an area that, that we deal with, like, someone will come into town or somebody we deal with from a company, hey, is it still so bad in that area? They still have all those shootings? Are they still burning down all the buildings? What do you mean? Well,
that the way that the media portrayed that was.
Well, but once again, there was a narrative there, and the narrative was, this is what we're going to essentially make it all about, and that's what you got, and you didn't get the opposite of that.
The whole town of Ferguson wasn't burnt down.
I know that, and
they burnt one building.
But not only that, a lot of the damage, if you know your North County like I do, a lot of the damage was not in Ferguson; it was in Delwood.
That is true.
Several of those places that they burnt, that car dealership there on West Florissant was in Delwood. Matter of fact, I think the Delwood City Hall was burnt down because the Delwood City Hall at the time, I think, was in a strip center right there at Chambers in West Florissant, and that was burnt down. And there was a lot of damage in Delwood, and never everybody talked about that. It was always Ferguson.
That's because that was the soundbite that.
Well, once again, there's a narrative, and that's what happened. Hey, we got to take a break. We're behind. We never get behind, but we are now. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. It is 7 o'clock. Westplex 107.1. Over the weekend, I decided I was going to be able to sing like a Post Malone. I can't quite get that waver down. How do you think he does that?
Probably has something to do with his teeth.
Here we go again. Of course I knew that you were going there. I
can't help it.
Yeah.
Most people would look at his tattoos and think, ew. I don't look at his tattoos. His tattoos, they're self-expression. But his teeth, he really needs to, talk to a dentist about dental hygiene.
You are obsessed with that. I think
I am, because you know what? The two things that people see when they first look at you, 3 actually, are your eyes, your smile, and your shoes.
The shoes thing, you talk about that. I think I know there are people that obsess about that.
I had 2 people comment on my shoes yesterday.
But that's mostly women. Come on, that's not guys.
These were gentlemen.
Well, then there's something wrong with them.
Which is usually odd because men don't hit on me. I think I scare them.
You scare people?
I do.
Shelley
I really
Barr
do.
scare people? No. There's no way. Let me give you a little update here on the weather. Once again, we still have the weather situation that is impacting morning drive. Please be careful out there. There are some cool school closings in the area. I talked about that. Not a bunch of them, but to the point where, like I mentioned, most of the snow is to the north of the St. Louis Metro. When you're going up like 40, 61, up 79, up toward Ellsbury and places like that. Troy and Winfield schools are closed. Wentzville's on a snow schedule. Most have school, but it's one of those things where the snow came a little bit late this morning. It's not super big time. It should be out of here by, the official forecast is saying that, let me look at that again. They're still saying that by 10 o'clock the snow will be gone. By at least 11 o'clock. 10 o'clock it'll be essentially sort of trailing off, and by 11 it should be totally out of the area. But once again, part of the problem is that certain things are frozen, certain things aren't. The ground temperature was up a little bit high yesterday. For the most part, the problems out there on the highways are the overpasses and bridges, so extra caution this morning. We're talking about a lot of different things. I was just reading a review of the debate last night. I saw part of the debate. They're talking about the biggest loser loser was Michael Bloomberg. Once again, he made some comments about women. It's like, I don't quite get this. I told you there's an ad that I saw that was running that was, God, had to be at least 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. And it was nothing but woman after woman after woman after woman after woman who'd either worked with him with his company's Bloomberg or worked with him as an employee of the city of New York when he was the mayor. And, he's such a great guy. Oh, and you're going like, sometimes when you see things like that, you're going like, okay, we know where this is going. You know what I mean? It's to the point where you can sort of figure out why a campaign is pushing in one direction because they're getting pushed back in that same direction, if you know what I'm saying. And
I do.
Last night, boy, Elizabeth Warren, boy, she made him look bad on a couple different things. And then the Bernie thing.
What's with the Bernie thing? What happened?
I don't understand. I don't get it. I guess what so many people are enthralled with him is that everything's free. Free education, free this, free that. It's all free. Everything. What do you want? You want a new car? Bernie's going to get you one. It's almost to the point where you remember when there was that classic news clip that when President Obama got elected, that there were people saying like, oh, I don't have to pay for my rent anymore because President Obama's going to take care of that. And I don't have to pay for my phone anymore because I'm going to get an Obama phone. And I think...
Is that like a jitterbug?
No, everybody was going to get free stuff. And I think that's sort of the deal that with Bernie. He's saying, hey, free healthcare, free this, free that. You don't have to pay for anything. You can live wherever you want. It's all free. Everything's free. I don't know. I spend my days when I do
cringe.
No. I spend my days trying to make myself better by learning from people who've been successful. That may sound...
I know that you do that.
That
actually.
may sound really crazy, but I watch a lot of videos. Matter of fact, I watched a video last night. This guy, I've talked about this, Billie Jean Shaw, this guy who's this marketing guru out of San Diego. He had a seminar with Damon John from FUBU and from the Shark Tank show. And once again, I learned all sorts of stuff. I learned things from successful people. And I do not understand what's happened in our country where we demonize successful people. What Bernie Sanders is doing is essentially, if you make lots of money, you're gonna pay for everything. We're gonna take your money. I get it that the gap between the richest and the poorest keeps widening. But once again, I say, and boy, I'm going to get myself in trouble when I say this. You know what I say?
Probably are.
You know what I say the problem is?
Do I want to know?
I'll tell you. Our school system. K through 12. I say that's the problem right there.
Okay. I knew I didn't want to know that.
Do you want to know why?
No, I don't.
But I'll tell you then, because of the fact that they're not teaching our kids to become self-sufficient. They're teaching our kids, and especially when I was going to school, what did they all tell you? What did your teachers tell you? Oh, go to school, then go to college and get a good job. Shelley, how many people do we know who are in business who, like, for example, Caleb Hunter, Extreme Electrical. What's one of the problems he has? He can't find electricians.
Not journeyman level electricians.
Right. Talk to our people that want to become apprentice. People who just have an interest in becoming an electrician. And you know what? Caleb pays some decent bucks. Good guy to work for. A great company, growing company. He can't find people. Talk to any HVAC company, any air conditioning, refrigeration guys, any people, and they'll all tell you the same story. We can't find HVAC people. Talk to carpenters.
See, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case, because if people have a good working environment and they're known for total class, I don't think that they would have a problem getting people.
There aren't.
Like I know for a fact, Elite Mechanical, her people are loyal to them, both Tim and Katie. They're loyal to them because they treat their employees appropriately.
But
same way with Caleb. He treats the employees good.
You're missing my point, though.
What is your point,
They're
Brad?
not attracting new people into the field. Just like, for example, in our broadcasting.
Caleb is attracting new people into the field.
No.
What he wants is journeyman level technicians.
I get what you're saying, but it's not like every day 10 people are standing at his door, knocking on his door. Hey, Caleb, I want to be an HVAC guy. That's the point I'm trying to make. There are not young people. I mean, perfect example in our industry. Okay, broadcast engineers. Okay, do you know what the average age of a broadcast engineer in the United States is right now?
74.
62. Okay, what does that tell you?
Same difference.
And the problem is there's no young people coming into our business because they don't want to do that. They want to do, and I think that's part of the problem is that it's the schools have, I mean, like perfect example. When I went to school, we had woodworking class, we had shop class. Most of the school districts have eliminated that. I don't think that I don't think they have. Do they have shop class in Francis Howell? Do they have shop class in Fort Zumwalt in Wentzville?
I don't know. But they've replaced it with things that are they teaching shop? I don't know, but I know that they're teaching more electronics.
Yeah,
and more STEM.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying, but think about what you're saying. It's the same thing that I've said.
I never think about what I'm saying, Brad.
They're teaching people, and they're not teaching entrepreneurship. They're not teaching self-reliance. They're essentially saying, if you do this and you do this, you'll get a good job. And, like what I said, when I went through schools, if you do this and you do this, you'll get a good job. Because of the fact that think about the basis of the educational system. Think about the teachers and the principals and the superintendents. What's their background? Their background is education. They went to high school, they went to grade school, middle school, high school, they got their diploma. Then they went to college and they got their teaching certificate, and then they taught. So in other words, their path to quote-unquote success is all through the educational system. And the idea being is that you had to jump through these hoops. Once you got your piece of paper that qualified you to do this job, and then you went out and you got that job. My point is that they're not preparing people for not necessarily working for somebody else. They're not teaching entrepreneurship. They're not teaching people how to start companies.
They didn't teach entrepreneurship when we went to school.
I get it. I totally understand. And I think it's gotten worse.
So you're wanting them to, what I don't agree with is that they're stopping cursive. They're not teaching cursive anymore.
Yeah, but I sort of get that.
And they're changing the way that they figure math.
Well, but they've always done that. I mean, I went through that when I was in school. I went through that with my kids. They did, you do it this way, do it that way. And once again,
math has always been consistent with me.
No, not with me. And once again, I say, okay,
nothing is consistent.
I mean, here I'm going to say this: who cares when you got a phone in your hand that'll do calculus? You know what I mean? And do it do division to the 400th decimal or something like that. Who cares? You grab your phone, and you figure it out.
Checkbooks. They don't teach making change.
But that's part of what I'm saying is that.
But the parents also have an obligation.
I understand, but
teach this as well.
What I'm saying is, how many times do I see people who are very super successful and they dropped out of high school? And to the point.
I dropped out of high school.
Well, but once again, but you're not super successful. But because you're here with me, you're here.
I think I'm successful. I think I do life pretty well.
You're here with me. That's why you're not super successful.
Very much.
No, I still say the problem is the school systems. And once again, I mean, like they're not teaching. I mean, what's sort of interesting if you go into the rural school systems. To the point where they're still teaching some of that, but they're not teaching. There's so many things on so many levels. I told you before. I got a bachelor's and a master's degree. To a certain extent, waste. I look at it now.
I don't think it's a waste at all. I don't think that what you went to school for and what you were trained in was a waste at all, because you have put into practice and made your entire life based on your degrees.
Yeah, but the problem I had was, and this was something I learned way, way, way back when I was in college, because I had the unique experience of I started working in the radio business and on pretty much on the same day I started in college. So I was working professionally in the radio business and I was going to college at the same time. Same thing for my master's degree. And what my professors were telling us what the radio business was all about was nothing like what the radio business was all about. And at the time, I worked at the original KSOQ, which is now Y98, I was made fun of by some of my fellow students and even some of the professors. And at the time, the original...
Because of the music?
No, because of what the station was doing. The station was a very high-energy, top 40 radio station on FM, which at the time was unique. And I had professors telling me, first off, FM's not going to go anywhere, that there's no way FM stations could compete with KMOX, that KMOX was always going to be the dominant station in the market, and unless you worked at KMOX and you worked for Robert Hyland, you really were like sort of a low life in the radio business, that everybody, if you didn't work at KMOX and you weren't a reporter or an on-air person, that you were just like sort of, scum, that you were just like, you might as well be like, someone hanging out in the street corners, busking for money or something like that.
Okay. So all I know is that I don't know all the minutia of that. You do, because you were in there. But as far as a listener goes, as far as a client goes, all I know is that I forgot what I was going to say. It was very profound, actually, and I forgot what I was going to say.
I go back and I say, and I have friends of mine who are teachers, and they always get upset with me. But see, once again, the thing that bothers me about this is that
I remember. Wait a minute. So the thing that as a client and as a listener, people my age didn't listen to KMOX back in the day. We listened to KSHE or we listened to KSLQ. They were the dominant forces. But
once again, the problem was my professors were totally out of touch with what the industry was all about. Totally out of touch. And most of these guys that were my professors had never worked at a commercial station. They'd always worked at like an NPR affiliate or a campus college radio station. And that's just not reality. It's just not reality. You and I talk about this all the time. If we didn't have to sell advertising, this would be a great business. If you and I could just sit here on the radio and talk all day long and have fun and joke and kid and go to lunch with people and, hey, what do you want? That'd be great. But the problem is the real business is advertising and marketing and selling advertising and getting people to come on the air and help promote their businesses. That's the tough part of it. And that was never taught. I never had one class in any of that. And I think that once again, the whole situation is the educational system is, think about it. If you're a teacher, what's your life cycle? You go to kindergarten through 12, then you go to college, then you get a job, you work your 30 years and you retire, and then you live the rest of your life off a pension from the state, like in Illinois, where they can't afford the pensions, but yet they still pay the pensions out anyway, and you have life insurance for the rest of your life, and that's the way it is, and that's what's taught to the students. Oh, this is the life. This is what you should do. Follow just like I did.
That is not what is taught to the students, Brad.
It is. Sure it is.
And as far as Illinois goes, they may not have the money for the pensions, but I think they got a little jolt in the economy when they legalized marijuana.
It's still not going to help them. The money for that is it's just not there. They can.
Don't kid yourself, my friend.
But there's when they're collecting millions of dollars in taxes and they owe tens of billions of dollars in pension benefits. It would be like saying if you told me, hey, I got $1 million in bills, and I said, oh, here's $10. Will that help? It's like, no, not really. Yeah, it'll make like a little tiny dent in what I owe. But if I owe $1 million and you give me 10, I still owe $999,990 dollars. And I reduced it by what? Maybe 0.01% or something like that. Just not going to help. Yeah. Hey, Shelley's talking too much. We had to take a break. It is.
Yeah, you think that's Sparky.
Yeah. Don't you like it when I always make everything your fault?
It usually is. Everything is my fault.
And by the way,
I learned that from my mentor.
What Shelley hasn't told you is that Shelley has a teaching degree and she was a teacher. That's 727.
No, Shelley doesn't have a teaching degree, and nor was she a teacher.
727. Westplex 1071, one of about 3 or 4 different versions of that song, and we played the cleanest one of them. There's certain things of that song we can't say on the air. Well, we can, but we don't want to get in trouble, right?
No. we don't want to get in trouble, but I love that song. It's full of energy and it's so appropriate.
Yeah, there you go. Westplex 107.1, it's 7:33. The weather is sort of funky this morning. People driving in, it's not the best situation. Snow started early this morning. Once again, it's that nasty stuff. We're right at that freezing point. Matter of fact, officially, it's now 31 degrees, so we're just a tad bit below freezing. The snow started out as rain earlier this morning, which was not necessarily a good situation, and it's gotten to the point where, as far as what's going on this morning, sort of a nasty area. And I know it's no consolation to you, but we're on the tail end of this system. I'm watching it on radar right now. It's pretty much out of the St. Louis area for the most part. We're just on like the trailing edge of the snow. The majority of it is to the east and northeast of us. If you're heading to Chicago right now, the entire length of 55 between downtown St. Louis and Chicago, you are going to be into snow. So, and to the west of us right now, a couple little small showers, snow showers, one of them which is coming in the Springfield area, another one which is out just to the east of Kansas City. But other than that, the majority of the snow by 10 o'clock should be out of the area, and probably by 3 or 4 this afternoon. Let me see, what's the hourly temperature predictions? We'll have the complete forecast coming up in a minute with Jennifer, but yeah, this afternoon it's supposed to be like 36, pushing 37 to 38. So most of this is going to be, at least if it's not going to be gone, it'll be pretty much off the roads and highways. So make it through this morning, and hopefully things will be better. Shelley and I have had some spirited conversations. She's been talking about how she thinks the problem with education nowadays is with the teachers.
That's not what I said, and you know it. So stop it. I happen to respect the teachers, the superintendent, Dr. Bernie Dubray of Fort Zumwalt, and we have an excellent educational system here in St. Charles. We do. Okay, so
I'm not saying it's not bad. I'm saying it needs to be different to be better. How's that?
I mean, we have students, I don't know if they're Francis Howell or Fort Zumwalt, but they got perfect SAT scores.
Yeah, but once again, do you think those guys could install an electrical panel for Caleb? If Caleb hired him today, hey, you got a perfect SAT. Here, go install this electrical panel at this guy's house.
Well, they would have to have some additional training.
Once again, what good does that do? What good does a perfect SAT do? I remember. I heard that. I heard that interview. I heard the interview with 2 weeks ago with Huey Lewis, and he talked about the fact that he had a perfect SAT, and he graduated from high school, and he spent a year busking in Europe, and
And that's what he should have been doing.
Yeah, but
because that's what we do after we graduate, and we start finding the person that we want to be.
But he could have gone away to college and become I think he did go to college, but he could have become like an attorney or a doctor or stuff like that, or a teacher. But then all they'd be sitting there all day is thinking, well, let me think, I only have 22 years, 8 months, 4 days, 3 hours till retirement, right?
I don't think that everybody is saying that. I will say that just because they had a perfect SAT and they could get into like my groom, my husband, he was approved to go to, or accepted to go to MIT, but he couldn't go because he didn't have the money. This is going back years and years and years ago.
Yeah. But
I know that if he would have had that education, he actually was very successful in his life. But if he worked for NASA, he was a third level manager for the FAA. He actually excelled throughout his life, and in the technical field, mind you. And he didn't have that degree from MIT.
Well, once again, I'm a guy who's got 2 degrees, and I say to a certain.
And you use your degrees,
I don't.
Brad. You're one of the.
No, never.
You've used them your entire life.
No, but it's all to a lot of what I learned was BS. It wasn't the way things are done.
nothing is the way things are done.
I'm always fascinated by the fact that, and once again, I love finding out about entrepreneurs' backgrounds and things like that, and most of them, have a dissimilar background from what they're doing today. Because I think to a certain extent they looked at things and go, oh, this is not the way. I mean, once again, here's the other situation. If you talk to most entrepreneurs and find out how they made a lot of money, you know what the most common answer is?
What? Blood, sweat, and tears?
No, they found a problem and addressed it. They found an issue, a problem, something that was, and once again, I mean, I heard a guy just the other day say, and I know you're gonna be upset when I say this, because once upon a time you ran a cab company in addition to being a circus performer and working for.
I've been a lot of things. Anyway, go on.
I know. Just read the descriptions of the shows on our podcast, and you'll find out all the things Shelley's done.
Those are from a man that has a journalism degree.
Anyway, what was I talking about?
I don't know what you were talking about. I just think there and go. God, you're so full of BS.
No, I was talking about fixing. Okay, no, you ran a cab company. Okay, why did Uber come and kill the cab companies? Because of the fact that people got tired of having crabby cab drivers and getting in a cab and having it stink, or being dirty, and having the cab driver take you the long way so we can make more money, and having bad service, and all of a sudden Uber comes along, and you had no control over that. So in other words, and like when you ran the cab company, did anybody ever call you up and go, I had a ride in cab number 502 and your guy was really nasty? Did that ever happen?
No, but we had that never happened. But we weren't a dispatch company. We weren't a dispatch company until we came out here to St. Charles. So our cab company was an airport cab company. My daddy had him and his daddy had started it back in 1940 at the airport when Lambert was just runways of dirt and grass.
Right.
So they only serviced the airport from the airport.
Shelley.
They came back, light.
First off,
so we were not a dispatch company until we moved out to St. Charles.
Shelley, first off, in 1940, Lambert was an airport and grass, was whatever you used, dirt and grass. And like there were concrete runways at Lambert way back when. It wasn't like it was like a dirt strip or anything like that. I mean, you go back, and I think the runways, they had concrete runways back in the late 20s or something like that.
For Lambert?
Oh yes. Yes. By the 40s, come on. By the 40s, there was air travel that was, that was during World War II, and there were lots of different, there were I'm gonna research this, because you're going like, well, it was grass back in 1940. That would be like me saying, I moved into St. Charles County, and it was nothing but tents. People didn't have any. When I moved there, everybody was living in tents in St. Charles County, and you know what? You had to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle, because once you got off the interstates, there was no concrete, and nobody had any water. When I moved into St. Charles County, you had to go down to the Darden Creek and dip a bucket into the creek and pull out some water, and if you wanted to go to St. Charles County, government center, you had to get in your covered wagon and team up your horses and go down there.
Well, I wasn't alive in the 40s. I was more in the 60s, and that's what my daddy told me, so that must be correct.
Okay. We can't argue with your daddy, can we?
No, you cannot.
Because he'll come back and kick my butt. Okay.
Yes, he will.
It's 7:42.
Like a tick.
Westplex 107.1. It is BS in the Morning. I am B. She is S. And we have a website, bsinthemorning.show. Lots of things we're talking about this morning. Top of mind right now, weather, still snow falling in the area. We're on the tail end of it. I know I keep saying that, and people are like, when's it going to end? Probably an hour or two from right now, and the snow should be totally out of the area. Light enough to cause some problems. The temperature right at that freezing mark. There are lots of slick spots on the highways, lots of accidents this morning, some school closings. So please be careful out there this morning, because you know what? We're not the biggest radio station. If we lost 2 of you listeners this morning, we would be down to 1 guy out there in Moscow Mills. That's it. That's all we'd have left, right?
I think we have a little bit more than that, but yeah, we do want everybody to be careful.
You're talking in your Nord again.
Oh, Brad, the struggle's real. I'm just not kidding.
Okay, our last thing. Shelley made the comment that her grandfather started a taxi service out at Lambert in the 40s when, as she said, the airfields were dirt and mud, or dirt and grass. Okay, a pretty interesting history of Lambert Airport. Originally, it was started out as what was called the Kinloch Air Park. And then it was Kinloch Airfield in October of 23. The field was officially dedicated as Lambert St. Louis Flying Field in honor of Albert Bond Lambert, an Olympic silver medalist golfer in the 1904 Summer Games, which were here in St. Louis. And he was also president of Lambert Pharmaceutical Corporation, which made Listerine at the time, and the first person to receive a pilot's license in St. Louis. In February of 1925, Lambert bought the field and added hangars and a passenger terminal. Charles Lindbergh's first piloting job was flying airmail for Robertson Aircraft Corporation from Lambert Field. He left the airport for New York about a week before his record-breaking flight to Paris. In 1927, the city of St. Louis leased the airport from Mr. Lambert for, guess how much, in February of 1928. How much did the city lease the airport for from Mr. Lambert?
$137.
$1.
Oh, really?
Yes. Later that year, Lambert sold the airport to the city. $2 million bond issue passed, making it one of the first municipally owned airports in the United States.
And it's the city of St. Louis that owns it.
Still does, okay. Excuse me. In the late 1920s, Lambert Field became the first airport with an air traffic control system. And how did they control the pilots?
Flags.
Exactly.
Actually, well, they did flags, but then they actually had these guns, these colored guns.
Yeah, they shot off different flares. Yeah, they shot flares off.
No.
Yeah. No, that's what they did.
They did?
Yeah, they shot flares. And by the way, do you know who? This is trivia for this. Who was the first air traffic controller in St. Louis back in the 20s? Are you ready? Nobody could guess this.
Who?
Archie League, League. In 1925, the airport became home to the Naval Air Station St. Louis. 1930s, the airport was officially christened Lambert St. Louis Municipal Airport by by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. By the 1930s, Robertson Airlines, Marquette Airlines, and Eastern Airlines provided passenger service to St. Louis, as did Transcontinental and Western Air. I guarantee you they weren't landing on grass landing strips out there. They were paved back in the 20s.
Do you feel better?
No, it's just to the point where sometimes you say goofy stuff, and I'm going like, okay, hold on a minute.
I was just going by what my daddy had told me.
Well, I don't think that. To this day, there's still the Creve Coeur Airport, right? That runs the main runway runs right along 364 out there in the valley. And I wish they'd cut down those stupid trees, because you used to be able to. You're driving along there, especially going westbound. You used to be able to watch all the planes land. Now I got those goofy trees that grew out of the ditch right there. Anyway, that's the main runway, and I can't remember what runway it is, but they've got a crosswind runway there, which is grass. Do you know that? They still land out there in the grass. Some of those old guys.
Oh, they have a grass runway?
Yeah, out there they do.
Oh, okay.
But
don't you think that Lambert started out that same way?
No, the reason they have that grass runway is because these guys who fly those old planes from World War I still want to act like they're flying back in the over 100 years ago and landing on grass. But
what are you laughing at me for?
I don't know. Who knows?
I can't remember anything. You're laughing.
No. Well, but what? See,
this radio show today has just tickled me.
Yeah, tickled you, and probably nobody's left listening. I'm always fascinated
of course
by people that,
if not, they're going to pick up our podcast.
I'm always fascinated by people that, well, when I was young, my grandma used to do this. My one grandmother, well, when I was a girl, and she'd tell these stories, and I'm going like, that never happened. You know what I mean? It was just bizarre, weird stuff. I mean,
Well, I'm just going by what he told me.
okay, well, I tell my kids all the time. Matter of fact, I'm going to call my sons today and
Check
go,
to your satisfaction.
I'm going to say, well, I had great breakfast. I went out and I killed a deer this morning. And I slaughtered that deer up before I went, and cooked it up on my fire pit in the backyard. And then I got on my horse and I rode to work. And oh yeah, life was tough. Life is tough for me right now. And then when I went to lunch, I had to get on the buckboard and had to go downtown. And I wish they'd pave the main street downtown. Your buckboard, those little tiny wheels, they still get stuck in the
What's
mud.
a buckboard?
Don't you know what a buckboard is?
No.
You really don't know what a buckboard is? Come
No.
on. You've never watched any of those old Hollywood movies? All those westerns?
Well, I always watched the Hollywood movies growing up because that's what me and my mom did, but I don't know what a buckboard is.
Buckboard is a four-wheeled wagon of simple construction meant to be drawn by a horse or other large animal. Buckboard. You've never really heard that before?
I have not.
Oh yeah, if you ever watch any of the old, like I said, the cowboy movies, they're talking about, bring the buckboard
they
over
don't
here.
say, well, son, you need to get in your buckboard and take off now. They never said that.
Well, back then there's a show. I don't know if you knew. I mean, the culture hasn't ended. Back then there was buckboard drifting. Did you know how they used to do buckboard drifting? Did you know that? And they used to and they used to do buckboard burnouts.
Ignore, blah blah blah.
They'd get the horse, and then the smoke would come off the horse's horseshoes, stuff like that. And then they had the guys that tinted the side curtains on the buckboard, and then the police would pull them over in their horses, and they had this little device where they'd check to make sure the tint wasn't too deep in the buckboards, stuff like that.
Okay, well, they didn't have police back then. They had marshals. So there. So, yeah, I'm calling BS on you, mister.
I can't believe you didn't know what a buckboard was.
Okay, let's take it to a vote. Anybody that's listening, you have my cell phone number. You can find me on Facebook. Text me or Facebook message me and tell me if you knew what a buckboard was. Because I did not know, and I grew up with the old movies.
And you've never heard that term before.
I have not.
Ever. I find that extremely hard to believe.
Well, you're a bit older than I am, Brad.
No, I am. I'm 84.
You are 84, and things that went down in 84 didn't go down in the 70s.
You don't think?
No.
That's because, what the problem I had was? I had
so many.
I had a concussion back in the 40s because I flew back in the 40s, and the concussion I had was we had a hard landing out at Lambert because the ground, when the ground was sort of, when we
That's two.
when we landed out there,
it's 7:57.
When we landed out there in that grass field, they hadn't cut it right, and one of the wheels got stuck on a tree that was in the middle of the runway because it was a grass runway. Yeah, and when we hit the rut. After we hit the tree that was in the middle of the runway, and I got a concussion. That was one of those things that's the way it was, and that's why I've been ever since. And then back in the 50s, when we all rode our horses to work, I got there was a rattlesnake that came out of one of the side streets, and it spooked my horse and it knocked me off the horse and it gave me my second concussion. Has anybody texted you yet?
You've texted me. And you said, buckboards, everybody knows about that.
See, people are texting you and they're agreeing that everybody knows about that. See, they're all with me. Hey, last break, 7:58.